It just wouldn't be a Memphis Grizzlies Golden State Warrior game without some drama, without some technical fouls, without a questionable call. Like it always happens every single year. Yeah, it happens all the time. But guess what? We're not just going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the good from the game, the bad, the ugly, everything. We're going to break down the Grizzlies' loss to the Warriors coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We got a lot to talk about today. Specifically, we're going to break down the most recent Grizzlies game, Grizzlies and the Warriors. A win for Golden State, 131-118. The Grizzlies are now 2-2. It was their first road game of the season, so they went 2-1 in their first three games of the season, all were at FedEx Forum, and now they are 2-2, and they'll go to Phoenix next for one more road game before returning home. But we're going to break down this game. We're going to break down the ins and outs of this game. I got a lot to talk about. I got a lot to discuss and really want to see what you guys think as we get into that conversation as well. But first, I got to start with what we like to call the game within the game, because the Grizzlies lost this game, but I think they lost the game within the game too. And let's get into that, because there's layers to this conversation that needs to be had about what happened in the third quarter with 3:48 left in the game between Draymond Green and the Grizzlies. So I believe it was a steal, but there was a breakaway, for Santi Aldama. And Santi Aldama looked like, ho-hum. He was about to get a wide open layup. And you see Draymond Green chasing him down. And Draymond Green got some of that old school to him, right? He if you watched him over the course of his career, if you don't think he's dirty, you probably think he's towing the line. And if you don't think he's towing the line, you probably do think that he's dirty in some way, shape, or form. But however you feel about that, Draymond Green is very much one of those guys. I'm not giving you a free layup. And that was very much the sense of he winded back, hit Santi Aldama pretty hard enough to where, hey, I'm not even going to let you get a chance to finish through the contact. Because some guys, you'll see them, they grab them a little bit, and the guys are still able to throw the shot up there, get an and one or whatever the case may be. Draymond Green hit Santi hard enough. Santi falls down. He stays down for a little bit. He's wincing in some pain. And, the referees are discussing, if it's a personal foul, flagrant foul. I believe initially it's called a personal foul, which means Tomas Isolo, Grizzlies coach, he feels some type of way about it. He ends up getting a technical foul, arguing with the referees. Draymond Green gets a technical foul after his situation with Jaren Jackson Jr., who steps in, and Draymond, is kind of repeatedly yelling at him to shut up. And he gets a technical foul in that situation. So that's kind of the sense of, what happened in that sequence. But then we'll get more to what happened right after that, which is Santi Aldama goes to the free throw line. Santi shoots 2 free throws, misses both of them, and Draymond Green is, kind of hopping around in front of Santi, really towing the line. Like, I'm a little surprised he didn't get a technical, but that goes to the first point that I want to make. We've heard people talk about it, just how, the league deals with someone like Draymond Green, who toes the line a lot. And kind of surprised he didn't get a technical foul, on that cycle. Now, I try to be a very perspective thinker here in these type of situations, and he was showing them up. And, like, the Grizzlies aren't necessarily, I guess, what's the word here? Like, the Grizzlies got some showmen on their team from time to time. I will definitely say that. Like, you go back to the first game of the season, Ja Morant caught the inbound pass, and Jeremiah Fears for New Orleans was chasing behind him, and Ja was pointing back at him. Like, there's a little, ha-ha showing him up a little bit there too. But with Draymond Green, it's a completely different situation. One, when he had to wind up the hard foul on Santi, there was zero remorse. There was zero remorse there. And then on top of that, he pretty much stood on business. Like, and he taunts in front of Santi Aldama. He's hopping around, after the free throws. And I'm really surprised that the referees did not give him a technical foul. And I'm pretty sure it was because he already had one and they just didn't want to eject him. But that is a situation where if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm going to the league and I'm saying, what happened here? Why wasn't he assessed a technical foul in this situation? Call it what you want, but I do believe that should have been a tackle. Now it wouldn't have had some great impact on the game. Probably like Draymond Green fouled out midway through the fourth quarter, and the Warriors cruised on through the rest of the game. So that's that on that front. The other part of this that I want to talk about is more on the Grizzlies side, and I want to say I was disappointed at how the Grizzlies handled that situation. We saw Isolo, step out there for his player, and I think the referees were about to call it a personal foul. He got the technical foul, arguing with the officials. They end up reviewing it. They, upgraded to a flagrant one foul on Draymond Green. Isolo got his money's worth in that argument. Now here's my problem. My problem is, number one, it's him telling Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the Grizzlies' leaders, repeatedly, shut up. Shut up. And you go listen to the audio. I mean, it's very audible on the TV version, but he's telling Jaren Jackson Jr. to shut up pretty much. And you can't hear what Jaren Jackson Jr. is saying to him, but Jaren Jackson Jr. walks away and goes towards the Grizzlies bench. And if you listen to Draymond Green's podcast, if you just listen to Draymond Green in interviews, when he talks like that, I think there is a part of him that wants you to respond because he'll respect you more. But when he gets that mental edge on you, he think he's won. So when he says shut up and you just pivot over to the Grizzlies bench, it's like, oh, I got him. He's, to me, it's always been a big brother, little brother relationship with Draymond Green, Jaren Jackson Jr., very respectful one. But this was very much, I'm the big brother. Don't you even try. Don't you even try to stand up for your teammate to me. Like I'm your big brother. And Jaren just took it. That was my interpretation of that situation. Now, even beyond Jaren Jackson Jr., after the two free throws, Santi Aldama missed his first one. He misses the second one. And Draymond Green goes hopping around on the floor. Hopping around on the floor in front of the free throw line. The referees don't call anything. There's no technical given from the referee's perspective. I don't remember all the players who were on the floor off the top of my head, but I know Cam Spencer was right there. I know Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was right there, and I know Jaren Jackson Jr. was right there, and I know Santi was shooting the free throw. Cam Spencer, we talk all the time about his energy, right? When Zach Kleiman was talking about, who's dogs and all that, he said Cam Spencer is a effing grizzly bear. That's what he said. And then Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, that's the vet. 13th year in the league. He's supposed to, I think it would be, very much expected for him to step in there in that situation, walk up to Draymond. You need to chill out. You don't got to do too much. Like, I think when we talk about the idea of an enforcer and things like that, some people get the wrong idea because they say, hey, what is he supposed to do? Like, you can't crash out. Like, you got a whole NBA career to consider. Like, no, it's not that. It's going up to him and saying, we're not going to let that happen. You're not saying punch him in the face. You're not saying, go tackle him or anything, but go up there to him, maybe give him a little push or something. Like, we're not going for that. Because guess what? The next time he thinks about doing that, even because it's Draymond Green we're talking about, he probably still going to do it. But even before he does it, he's going to look over there and figure out where you at. Because he know, that dude right there, he ain't going for that. And like I said, in my mind, based on all the interviews that we've heard from Draymond, based on his podcast, I feel like he respects you more when you stand up to him in that way. But when he feels like he can taunt and walk around on the floor and nobody's going to say anything, guess what? The next time they play the Grizzlies, he'll do it again. Time after that, he's going to do it again. And someone's going to have to be that person and say, I ain't going for it. Do the Grizzlies have that guy? I think there's a guy. I think it's Zach Edey, but he's hurt. So who else is going to be that person? Because Desmond Bain was that guy. Do you remember when Cam Spencer and Kevin Durant were face to face last year? That Grizzlies Suns game? Who stepped in there? Desmond Bain did. Got in the face of Kevin Durant. And there are more situations like that. So, like, Desmond Bain would do that. Zach Edey would do that. But in the case of Desmond Bain, he's gone. In the case of Zach Edey, he's hurt. Somebody's got to be that guy. You can't, because there's a mental part of that to where, look, Draymond Green probably, for all I know, probably went back to the bench. We got them. We got them. Look how all those dudes walked off. Nobody said anything to me. And I think there's a part of that. I think there's a part of that. If the Grizzlies would have had a guy, if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Jaren Jackson Jr. or Santi or Cam Spencer walks up to him and say, we ain't having it, you can fire the bench up that way, because the momentum was very much in the Warriors' direction in the third quarter. It was a 4-point game at halftime. At this point, it was a 13-point game. Golden State had all the momentum. That was a chance for the Grizzlies to say, we ain't going for that. Got to pick up a technical foul, go back to the bench, hype up his teammates. The energy shifts. It's those type of moments that really stand out to me. But yeah, I really feel like the Grizzlies could have handled that situation better. You know, you could say, oh, do they need more dogs, or however you want to, assess it. Like, I just don't think, somebody needed to step up to Draymond. And like I said, I'm not saying, do something that's going to get you suspended. It's just letting him know we aren't going for that. You can't just, because I guarantee you, dudes weren't just la-di-da-di-da against the grit and grind Grizzlies, because you knew Zach Randolph was he was somewhere. And if he wasn't, Tony Allen was somewhere. And there were many other dudes behind that. And, there have been other guys. Dylan Brooks, Steven Adams. They weren't going for stuff like that. And even last year, we saw a few times where Zach Edey, Desmond Bain, wasn't going for stuff like that. But let me know what you guys think about that whole sequence, about that whole breakdown of that situation. And we got to talk more basketball now. I really wanted to start off talking about that situation, but we got to talk about more basketball here. We're going to break down some of the things that happened in the game coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen up. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at FanDuel. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Game Time. Listen up. If you're a business owner, or if and you're saying, oh, I want to go to this event, or I want to go to that event, or you don't have to be a business owner. You can be, someone who just enjoys concerts or live events. Basketball season is here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a headache sometimes. It can be a headache, but waiting in the queue, surprise fees, and all that before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in. That app gives you, the fans, the advantage that you need to see your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Look, anytime I'm looking for some tickets, whether it's a concert, whether it's a comedy jam, or whether it's a basketball game, football game, I'm always going to Game Time first. And for NBA games, you can even find some tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go over at Game Time. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, where we're talking about what happened in the game now? We just spent a lot of time talking about the whole sequence with Draymond Green and all of that hoopla, whatever. We got to talk hoops, man. That's what we do on Locked On Grizzlies. We talk hoops. And there was a lot to take away, I think, from this game. And we're going to break down this. And at the end of the day, it was a 131 to 118 loss. So it was more bad to take away than good necessarily. And it's just about getting ahead of some issues here. And the number one thing that I wanted to talk about in today's show is the shooting struggles, because we haven't talked much about the shooting struggles of the Grizzlies, because up to this point, before the Golden State game, the Grizzlies were shooting less than 30% from three-point range. And you wonder, from the standpoint of, is this something, what's the reason? What is the reason behind these shooting struggles? And I came to the conclusion there's a few things to factor in. There are a few things to factor into why the Grizzlies have not been a good shooting basketball team right now. And number one reason is because your two best players, your star players, aren't necessarily your best shooters. In this game in particular, like Morant, was 0 of 6 from three-point range. We're going to talk more about him later on in the show. Jaren Jackson Jr. did make 2 of his 3, attempts. But if you talk about historically, Jaren has been roughly a league average three-point shooter over his career. So at the end of the day, these are going to be 2 of your guys who are going to be taking a lot of threes. They're 2 of your best players. They're going to have the ball in their hands the most, and they aren't the most efficient three-point shooters. So what you do is you make up for that in other areas, and here's where it hurts the Grizzlies. Literally, it hurts the Grizzlies because Ty Jerome's out. Scottie Pippen Jr. is out. That's 2 guys last season who were above 40% three-point shooters. In addition to you losing Desmond Bane, in addition to you losing Luke Kennard, you're talking about right there alone, that's 4 guys who are, pretty much 40% three-point shooters. I think Des shot below 40% last season, but over the course of his career, he's definitely done that. So I think the injuries are hurting the Grizzlies from that standpoint too. We talk about a lot with Zach Edey in the rebounding. Like that is something that the Grizzlies are really missing without Zach Edey. But Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr. both shot the ball pretty much well over the course of their careers, and both were above 40% three-point shooters last season. They're missing that three-point shooting. It would really come in handy right now. And you may be saying, because there's a third point that I want to make here, and you may be saying, okay, Damichael, but they're starting Jalen Wells, starting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and I would agree with you. I would agree, because these struggles aren't because of your star players. To me, it's more about you built this team where you put these complementary players around Ja Morant, around Jaren Jackson Jr., and part of what makes those players good is they are floor spacers who can shoot the basketball. And it's been a struggle so far this season, right? Jalen Wells, people are waiting. When is it going to kind of turn around for him? Right now, this game, he was 3 of 8 overall, 0 of 3 from three-point range in this game. And then Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 1 of 4 from three-point range. So 2 starters, 2 guys who you expect to at least shoot 36, 37% from three-point range, combined against Golden State to go 1 for 7. So it's not just that those guys didn't shoot the ball well. It's the fact that if you look over at the Golden State set line, you saw a team that shot 19 of 43.3 three-point range, 19 of 43, whereas this Grizzlies team shot 12 of 39. And like I said, these three-point shooting struggles aren't new. Like, you can go to pretty much every Grizzlies game up to this point. I just talked about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Jalen Wells, as well as the Grizzlies played against the Pacers, because you got to get nitpicky about stuff, because in those games when you win 128 to 103, no one's talking about it. But somebody out there is looking at it, because, again, it's about the process, not about the results, in all cases. Someone out there noticed. In that game, Jalen Wells and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 1 of 12 from three-point range. 1 of 12 from those 2 players. And here's what I noticed. Here's what stood out to me from that game is the Grizzlies were 15 of 39 from three-point range, right, against the Pacers. So that's 38.5%. So you're probably sitting at home as you're watching that game, and you're thinking, like, man, we really shot the ball well today. And in my mind, what I'm thinking is Cedric Howard was 6 of 6 from 3-point range. Like I've seen Cedric Howard shoot the basketball in practice. He can shoot it. He can shoot it. Javon Small was 3 of 4 from 3-point range in that game. Cam Spencer was 2 of 4 from 3-point range in that game. So basically, you got 11 of the 15 made 3-pointers from 2 rookies and a second-year guy. And of those guys, when you talk about when the roster takes shape a little bit more, Cedric Howard is probably going to be the only one who's playing. So I'm like, okay, Jalen Wells is going to be playing a lot. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's going to be playing a lot. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be playing a lot. John Morant's going to be playing a lot. Santi Aldama's going to be playing a lot. None of them have really been shooting it well from 3-point range. So it's going to be to the point, even when you have a Scottie Pippen Jr. and a Ty Jerome back, you're going to be very dependent on those guys being able to knock down some shots. But yeah, it's simple. You need Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to be better. You need Jalen Wells to shoot the basketball better. And I think in between those stretches, Ja Morant's going to have a good shooting day here and there. Jaren's going to have a good shooting day here and there. Santi's going to have a good shooting day here and there, etc. And it should balance out. This is a team that I still believe could be a really good 3-point shooting team. But I think the fact that Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr., those two guys being out, we're really seeing the other side of that. Whereas the depth of the 3-point shooting isn't there. So when a guy like Jalen Wells or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, when those guys aren't shooting well, it really shows, especially when you see a team like Golden State, where it looked like an avalanche of 3-pointers from Golden State in this game, and the Grizzlies just couldn't match it, and they didn't have the answer. So I think that was definitely part of the problem. We're going to talk about something else. We got to talk about the stars. We got to talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant more coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, before we talk about Jaren and Ja Morant, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Rippling. Look, here's the truth, especially for the business owners out there. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply just don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a service. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Look, everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfect in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNBA for 6 months free. Everyone, make sure you go take advantage of that. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Look, it helps me organize all of my accounts so I can know what's coming out on this day, what's coming out on that day, how much money I'm spending, and it gives you a better handle on your investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. Monarch's visual dashboard and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money is going and how to make it work at all times. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, and the code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at monarchmoney.com. It wasn't just shooting struggles, and it wasn't just Draymond Green's antics that led to the Grizzlies' loss. There was a little bit more. And, this segment is less about the game and more just about the totality of the situation right now with the Grizzlies being down, so many bodies, right? You're talking about a lot of rotation players. who aren't playing right now. And Charles Bassey, by the way, his 10-day contract the clock officially started when the Grizzlies played Golden State. He didn't play. And for those who do not follow me on X or didn't read my story of the commercial appeal, Isalo talked about him before the game, Charles Bassey, that is, and basically said that he's going to get an opportunity. And, he doesn't know when that opportunity will come, but he will get one. So the fact that he did get one in that game, I think he'll get, they'll continue to, give him more information on what they want from him, what they expect from him. And I think he'll gradually get sprinkled in here sometime over the next couple games. But Charles Bassey will be a role player like many of the guys that we talked about in this show. But two guys that aren't role players for the Grizzlies, they're the stars, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant. And here's the reality of the situation. Some of you may think it's fair. Some of you may not think it's fair. But it is the reality of the situation. And this is one of those things you cannot change my mind on. Because I think it's pretty laid out. Like it's very simple. The Grizzlies need Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. to be great almost every night right now. It has to happen or they're going to lose. Those guys have to be really good. Now, sure, sometimes you'll have Cedric Howard have a night, like he just had, against the Indiana Pacers. But for the most part, you need Jaren and or Ja Morant to be sensational because you don't have that pop that Scottie Pippen Jr. at times last season provided off the bench. You don't have that pop that Ty Jerome provided for Cleveland to the point where he was a top 3 candidate for 6th man of the year. You don't have that pop that Brandon Clark has given you off the bench where he scored in double figures in every season of his career, but last season in his career, despite playing, below 22, 23 minutes a game. And you don't have, the enforcer, the ability to get, more second possessions and things like that Zach Edey gives you. So you need your stars to be great because they are the guys who are the most proven players of the ones you have. And again, it's a tough standard, but it comes. You're a star, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and neither of them really brought it in this game, for different reasons. And I have my things like I think when it comes to Jaren Jackson Jr., at this point of the season, he needs to do more on the offensive end. And then as it comes to Ja Morant at this point of the season, I just want to see a little bit more on the defensive end. Specifically speaking on this game, like Jaren, they threw some doubles at him. And Jaren's been seeing quite a few doubles, so far early in this season. And he just wasn't as aggressive, scoring, looking to score as we used to him, seeing him be. I looked at the clock midway through the second quarter. I said, man, Jaren Jackson Jr. has 3 shot attempts. What's really going on right now? And then with Ja Morant, again, it wasn't his greatest offensive day, but I don't worry about that with Ja because it'll come. And he's gonna, like, in a game like this one, he shot 8 of 23 from the field. Didn't have his best day when it comes to making shots overall. But Ja Morant is always going to find a way to be active, to have his imprints on the offensive end. So you know what else he did? He had 9 assists. He had 7 free throws, and he made all 7 of those. So again, there's ways that he's gonna find his way on the offensive end. But on defense, this wasn't a great performance from Ja. He was initially given the assignment to guard Brandon Podziemski, and Brandon Podziemski had his best game of the season. 8 of 14 from the field, 5 of 7 on three-pointers, 23 points. And not all of that was on Ja Morant. Like, not all of that was on Ja. But what I can say is early in that game, Pods was getting some good looks. He got into a flow. And you let NBA players get in the flow. At that point, you can try to guard them a little bit differently, but the confidence is there. He's already seen a couple go in. And I think, Ja could have had more resistance, especially early in the game, defensively, to kind of prevent, Brandon Podziemski for having the night that he did. So, look, it's tough on those plays. And it's not just them, because there's another part to this where you have to lean on the stars and you need them to be sensational. It goes to the coaching too. And one stretch stands out to me, but I've seen this a few times in pretty much every game up to this point, and it's like, I want to see if there's going to be a bigger sample size because I'm waiting on the moment to talk about it here, like we're talking about it on Locked On Grizzlies. one thing that stood out to me is Tomas Isolo. You cannot take John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. off the floor. Yeah, one of them comes out of the game from time to time, get a rest, and the other one comes back in. But you can't have stretches right now. It's presently constructed where both guys are off the floor. It happened in that second quarter. I believe the Grizzlies was up like 49 to 49, 45 at one point, and then it was 49 to 48. It was 49 to 48. Jaren Jackson Jr. was in the game. John Morant was out. Javon Small was in. Jaren was in the game, and he takes Jaren out, and it's 49 to 48. And I'm bookmarking this as soon as it happens because watch what happens next. Anybody could have predicted it. Boom, 8-0 Warriors run. Next thing you know, the Warriors are up 56 to 49. Timeout Grizzlies. And it wasn't a surprise. You can't do that right now. I would expect, look, you just don't have the bodies. Now, when you get Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. back, surely you can rest John Morant and Jaren at the same time because you'll have more scoring pop. And look, I'll take it a step further and say if you do that with this current edition of the team, you need someone who's a comfortable shot creator in there. For all the great things that Cedric Howard is doing right now, unless it's that post-up turnaround shot, the shot creation is going to come along a little bit further. I love the efficient game that he plays. He's not forcing anything. It's going to come along a little bit longer. But one guy on the Grizzlies, other than John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., that will go say, hey, I got to go get a bucket right now for us. It's the guy that's not even playing. It's G.G. Jackson. Because none of the other guys have that makeup. So when you put those 5 guys out there, you say, hey, Javon, go create. And you got a lineup full of guys who necessarily aren't creators, you're going to get ugly offense. And that shouldn't be a surprise. So, look, that's nothing to the players. At the end of the day, their skill sets are their skill sets. But as a coach, you're supposed to put them in the best position possible. And the best position possible for the Grizzlies is to stagger John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. You have 2 stars now. Desmond Bane isn't here anymore. You can't take both those guys out and Desmond Bane still be in the game. No, you got 2. So Ja or Jaren have to be in the game at all points. And I thought, the first game he did a really good job of this. Even if it comes to that time you want to take them out for a couple minutes or something, just make sure it's a very opportunistic time, not when it's 49 to 48 and Golden State has a chance to just shift the momentum and pretty much not trail again. Because that's what happened after that. I believe that was the last time that the Grizzlies had to lead 49-48. Oh, and that was all she wrote. So, good learning experience for the Grizzlies, and it's not the end of the world. I know we talked about a lot of things that didn't go well on today, but at the end of the day, the Grizzlies will have a game in a couple more days against the Phoenix Suns, and they'll have every opportunity to get back on the right stretch. And next thing you know, they'll be potentially 3-2, and this game will have came and went. At that point. But thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Me and Joe Monax should be back with you on tomorrow as we break down all things for this next game coming up. The Grizzlies going to go against the Phoenix Suns, a struggling Phoenix Suns team, that just allowed Lauri Markkanen to hit a 50 ball on them. So we'll see, how the Grizzlies could potentially take advantage of that matchup in a game that they'll probably be favored to win. And once again, thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me today. And remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast, Locked On Grizzlies is there. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.